The echoes of Aethera. The vanishing star. It was a night like no other, the kind that felt too quiet, as if the world itself was holding its breath. The moon hung low, casting a faint, ethereal glow over the small town of Aethera, nestled between rolling hills and dense forests, far removed from the noise of the city. Aethera was the sort of place people came to escape, to heal, or to disappear, each with their own reason, none of them ever asking too many questions. But tonight, something was wrong. The event that broke the tranquility began not with a sound, but with a light so sudden, so blinding, that it momentarily made the moon itself look dim. In the sky above the town, something appeared, something that could not be explained. It was not a star, nor a comet. No celestial body could move like that. It hovered for a moment, casting an eerie glow over the rooftops, and then, just as quickly as it had appeared, it was gone. The residents of Aethera would later call it the vanishing star, and no one would ever be able to agree on exactly what they had seen. But there was one thing everyone could agree on. It wasn't just light that disappeared that night. A person vanished too. The echoes begin. Elena Graves had lived in Aethera for almost 5 years. A quiet, introspective woman in her mid-30s, she had come here to heal after a devastating loss, her brother Adam, who had drowned in the river just outside the town. For years, she had been haunted by unanswered questions. The police had ruled it an accident, but Elena knew better. Adam had been a strong swimmer, a survivalist by nature. Something had happened that night, something no one wanted to talk about. Elena had kept mostly to herself in the time since, but tonight, as she stood on the edge of her porch, staring into the dark, she could feel the tension in the air. Something was stirring, and she wasn't sure if it was simply the memories of her brother or something far more sinister. She wasn't the only one who felt it. Across the street, in a small house with weathered siding, lived Jasper Lowe, a man who had lived in Aethera even longer than she had. A former writer, his life had crumbled after the death of his wife. He was a man of few words, preferring the company of books to people, but his eyes were sharp, and tonight they were wide with disbelief. He had seen it too, the light, the sudden flash in the sky. It had caught him off guard, much like everyone else. But there was something more to it, something gnawing at him. He had been in the woods the day Adam died, searching for a story, and he had felt it then, an unnatural presence, a coldness in the air. He had brushed it off as paranoia, but now, after seeing that flash of light, he couldn't ignore it anymore. Something was coming. The disappearance. It wasn't until the next morning that anyone truly realized what had happened. Rebecca Shaw, the town's schoolteacher, had not returned home the previous night. Her neighbors reported hearing strange noises, a soft humming sound, before the sudden disappearance of the star. When Eleanor arrived at the Shaw house to check on her, she found nothing out of the ordinary. No signs of struggle, no overturned furniture, only an empty room. The authorities were baffled. There were no clues, no witnesses, no explanation. Just as inexplicably as the light in the sky had vanished, so had Rebecca. Jasper was the first to suggest that they weren't dealing with a simple disappearance. "It's connected," he said quietly, standing at the edge of the woods, where the river wound through Aethera. His face was pale, his voice low, almost as if he was afraid of what he might be saying aloud. The vanishing star. It wasn't just light. Something's coming. Elena didn't believe him at first, but she couldn't shake the sense that everything was linked. Her brother's death, the eerie light, and now Rebecca Shaw's disappearance. Each moment seemed to pull her further into the mystery, the questions tightening their grip. Into the woods. The townsfolk were scared, whispering about strange occurrences in the night. Some spoke of voices in the woods, of shadows flickering at the edge of their vision. They said the forest around Aethera was cursed, haunted by the spirits of those who had vanished over the centuries. Elena had heard the stories all her life, but tonight they felt different. Elena, Jasper, and a small group of others, including Isaac Gray, the local sheriff, set out into the woods, determined to find any clue that might explain the recent disappearances. The deeper they ventured, the stranger the atmosphere became. The trees grew twisted, their branches gnarled and contorted as though reaching out to trap them. A mist rolled in, clinging to the earth like something alive, and the air grew heavy with a palpable sense of dread. They reached the river, where Adam had drowned all those years ago. The water was still and dark, reflecting the overcast sky like a mirror. Elena's heart beat faster, her mind racing with thoughts of her brother. What had really happened to him? Why had the river claimed him when he was so strong? It was then they found it, an unnatural mark on the ground, a circle of disturbed earth, as if something had been dug up or buried. Rebecca must have been here, Elena said, kneeling down to touch the soil. She was looking for something. Jasper crouched beside her, his fingers brushing the dirt. Or someone was looking for her. The man in the shadow. That night, as they made their way back to town, something, or someone, watched them from the trees. A figure, barely visible, moved just beyond the edge of their campfire's reach. It was tall and thin, draped in shadow, but its presence was unmistakable. Elena felt a shiver crawl down her spine as the figure seemed to step closer. She could feel its eyes on her, cold and predatory. Before anyone could react, the figure disappeared into the woods, vanishing as quickly as it had appeared. The air grew even colder, the silence thicker. Who was that? Isaac asked, his voice hoarse with unease. I don't know, Elena replied, feeling the weight of her words. But I think we're being hunted. The truth revealed. In the days that followed, Elena and Jasper grew closer. They shared a bond, united by their grief and their need to uncover the truth. As they pieced together the fragments of the mystery, they discovered that Aethera wasn't just any town. It sat atop an ancient site, a place where the veil between worlds was thin. The vanishing star was not a random event. It was a signal, a sign that the barrier between the living and the dead was weakening. Rebecca Shaw, it turned out, was the descendant of the town's founders, people who had made a terrible pact centuries ago with something from the other side. The pact promised prosperity and safety, but in exchange, every so often, a soul was taken to balance the bargain. The town's history was riddled with disappearances, sacrifices to the unknown forces that governed Aethera. As Elena and Jasper dug deeper, they learned that Rebecca had been chosen as the next sacrifice. But what neither of them expected was that the shadowy figure in the woods was not just a spirit. It was a man who had lived for centuries, cursed to wander the woods, keeping the balance of the pact. His name was Alistair Ward, and he had been the town's first sacrifice. The final choice. The night of the final confrontation arrived. Aethera was plunged into darkness as the vanishing star reappeared, brighter than before. The town was consumed by fear, everyone trapped in the grip of an ancient curse they had long forgotten. Elena stood at the edge of the woods, staring into the heart of the darkness. In her hands, she held the pendant her brother had worn the night he died, the same pendant that had once belonged to Alistair Ward. It was the key to breaking the cycle, but only if she could choose to sacrifice herself. As the figure of Alistair emerged from the shadows, Elena knew what had to be done. The choice was hers, to break the curse and free the town, but at the cost of her own life. But as she stepped forward, ready to face the ultimate test, she was struck by a revelation. She had been wrong all along. The pact wasn't just about balance, it was about redemption. The true power of the curse lay in the ability to forgive, to heal the broken parts of the past. In that moment, Elena made a choice that would change everything. Not to sacrifice herself, but to embrace her grief, her loss, and find the strength to forgive. And in doing so, she broke the cycle forever. The aftermath. The vanishing star faded from the sky, and with it, the curse that had bound Aethera for centuries. The town was free, but Elena had learned a harsh truth. Redemption isn't something that can be given. It must be earned. As she stood by the river where her brother had died, Elena felt a sense of peace she had not known in years. She had uncovered the mystery, but more importantly, she had found a way to let go of the past. The town would rebuild, and life would go on. But the echoes of Aethera, its mysteries and its secrets, would linger in the hearts of those who had lived through it, forever shaping who they had become. And as the sun rose over the horizon, Elena knew one thing for sure. Sometimes, the greatest mysteries are the ones we hold within ourselves.